We keep solving this MCQ by moving to now it is quiz number MCQ number 7. Okay, so we are given f of x equal to ln x and g of x equal to exponential of x. Then this says that if I do f of g of x, I will get x for all x in R. So when you have a kind of question like this, people, what is f of g of x? F of g of x means that put g of x in f of x, right? Basically. So it will be logarithm of the exponential of x, right? But you know that this stuff, logarithm of exponential of quantity, will always give this, so it will give x. And in fact, what is the domain of this function? The domain of this function, to solve it, you should say that exponential of x will be greater than 0, right? But this is always true. So the domain is R. Doubts? So we can see that the domain of this function here is R, and also the domain of x is R, right? So the two functions are the same, whatever is x in R. Doubts? But the order says f of g of x is equal to x only for x in the interval 0 to, no, it's false, because we saw that is the yes or not. It holds for all x in R. For all x in R, f of g of x is equal to g of f of x. And let's you see that f of g of x is the logarithm of the exponential of x, and g of f of x is the exponential of the logarithm of x, right? But typically these two functions, this function here will be equal to x for all x belonging in R, right? Whereas this function will just give me x. You see, I can compute this stuff only when x is greater than, okay? So this function and this are not the same for all x. They are the same for all x greater than 0, but not always the same. Okay, so the answer was A, right? Okay. Number 8. So I repeat that the answer here was 7A. Okay, let's move to number 8. So even here you have f of x equal to x squared and g of x equal to root of x. And the question is, then you need to find the composition. So if you understood my trick is just to write, you just write the composition and then you analyze it. So don't perform and as long as you didn't analyze, okay? So I will just write g as the one from me, g of f of x. What does it mean? It means root of x squared. You see, I didn't do any change. When it's like this, root of x squared, what will be the domain? The domain is that x squared should be greater or equal to z. So, but x, this is true, right? And so the domain here will be R. So the g, if I do g of f of x, this will be root of x squared for all x in R. So the s is but okay, I have to clarify. Root of x, this root of x squared is equal to absolute value of So anytime when you do root of x squared, don't say that it is x, it is absolute value of x. Is that clear? If you don't believe, if you do root of 2 square, how much you get? Root of 4, that is 2, right? But if the same, if I do root of minus 2 square, it will turn back to be 2 anyway. So when I have root of quantity to power n, okay, and root of quantity, root of root square of something square, that thing going out become just the absolute value. So that's why we say root of x square is absolute value of x. Okay. So, and we saw that this function, this g of f of x give this absolute value of f of x. So I repeat, g of f of x was root of x squared that we saw equal to absolute value of f of x, and this for all x belonging to R, right? Because there was there's no location for him. Okay. Okay, so this proves that the A score is correct. Pay attention, f of g of x that give root of x square. Root of x square is not x, it is absolute value of x. Okay, g of x is the same as f of x for all x in R. No, it's always false, because if you do if we already here g of f of x is equal to f of g of x. This will be false if you write the two function. For example, what is g of f of x? G of f of x is root of x squared, right? Whereas to the other side, f of g of x will be g of f of x will be root x all square. But you see that the domain of this function here, root of x square, is R, right? But the domain of this one here is only when x is greater or equal to, because you cannot compute negative number. Doubts? And that's the point. Okay, so all then he said the E says f of g of minus 1 is minus 1. So let's say f of okay, in fact it's not possible to compute f of g of minus 1 because we cannot do root of minus 1, right? G of x is equal to x. G of f of x, no, we saw that it is equal to the absolute value of x, right? Okay, so this is, so the answer was 8. Yes. Doubts? Okay, very nice. So we will explain the mantissa and the cosine and periodic function in the next video. Thanks for attending.